This is the framework our real estate team used in Gainesville, Florida to list and sell over 3,000 homes, and many of them were expireds that other agents failed to sell. Like this one that the previous agent made look like a haunted house. We relisted this home and we sold it in 32 days. And the fact of the matter is that many expireds failed to sell because the previous agent made a mistake with the pricing, the photos, or they weren't available enough to answer the phone when interested buyers called. So here's the 4-step framework that you can use to find and list expireds in your market. And the first thing is you need to find the ripe expireds. Okay, so that's number one. Find the ripe expireds that are available to you. So what is a ripe expired? Well, I like to go after the old expireds. That's what I tell my agents to do, because when somebody first expires, as you know, at 7 o'clock in the morning, real estate agents start blowing up their phone, asking them, when are you going to hire the right agent? And they just get harassed. Now, that is fine. You can do that. You can go after the new expireds and try to get there first. But really, it's just a big game of getting there first. And it's very difficult to scale that out and to make it a repeatable system. And you have a lower success rate because you've got to call a lot of people really, really quickly the moment they expire and get there first. And it's difficult. So if you go after the old expireds, meaning people that have been expired for 30 days or longer, most of the time they've been all forgotten about. People don't even remember that that they expired, and many of them still want to sell. Most of those people will list their home and they will sell it. So going after the old expireds is like a blue ocean because it's a lot less competitive. They're forgotten about, and you don't have to wake up super early and start getting screamed at on the phone at 7 a.m. with people saying, you're the 19th agent that's called me and it's only 8:15. Go screw yourself. So go after the old expireds. There's a lot of them still, and they're much less competitive. Now, the next thing is expireds that had price reductions, okay? If a home was listed and they dropped the price, and it still didn't sell, well, it could have been that the realtor was on vacation. They weren't answering the phone. It could have been that the photos of the home were just terrible, and it could be other problems too, but there might be something that you can go in there and fix. And if someone had multiple price reductions, they're very motivated. Obviously, they want to get that home sold, and that's a very ripe lead to go after. Now, lastly is bad photos. And this one is so powerful because all the time homes don't sell because there were bad photos, okay? So, for example, this condo that I live in right now, I bought this condo in Miami Beach a couple years ago, and the home, the condo was listed for about 90 days, and we looked at 10 other properties, and finally I kept seeing this listing, but the photos were just so terrible. And finally I said, let's go look at it and see if it's nice. And it turned out to be a really nice place. And the reason nobody else was really looking at it, including myself, were the photos were so bad. They were not focused, they were not centered, they didn't really show the space, they didn't really hardly show the view. They were just awful photos, and the listing agent did a terrible job. And if you find an expired that had bad photos, the bad photos were probably why the home expired. And that is a ripe expired lead that you can go in there and explain to them, hey, I'm going to do a better job on the photos, and I'm going to get you a lot more buyers in the door. Now, number 2, you need to gain their trust, okay? And how can you gain their trust? You can gain it by being helpful. So one of the ways that you can be helpful is by providing them valuable information. So a few years ago, a friend of mine was getting married, and they asked me to be the best man at their wedding. So I went shopping for some tuxedos, and one of the shops I went to was called the Black Tux, and they had a book about how to be the best groomsman, and it explained how to give the perfect toast, how to get the dance party started, how to be helpful at the wedding, a whole bunch of great ideas, and of course, how to dress. And when I read the book, it eased my anxiety about the wedding and about the different responsibilities I had, and I bought my tuxedo from them because they were so helpful. So when you're helpful, you create trust, you create reciprocity, and this is why when you go to a restaurant, they give you a mint with your bill sometimes because they want to increase that reciprocity, okay? So you can do this by being helpful. And one of the things you can do, you can give them a guide. Personally, I like to give things that are physical because they're memorable. memorable. People aren't going to forget about something that's printed, that's real, okay? So give them a printed guide. Give them some printed information about how to sell their home. And what should you put in that? Well, first talk about high quality photos. Photos are so important. It's one of the biggest things that's going to attract interested buyers to a home. And like I said, on this condo here, the photos were really bad, and a lot of people didn't want to look at this property because of it. I didn't even want to look at it. It was like the 10th property I looked at, and when I finally did, I realized it was a nice place, okay? But high quality photos, show them the difference between mediocre photos and high quality photos, between dark, dingy, gloomy photos and bright, sunny, happy photos. And a lot of agents go around and they take photos with their smartphone. They don't get them very good. They don't enhance them. They don't brighten them, and they don't get the home sold. So when you show them that you're going to take great photos and you show them tips to get great photos, they're going to understand that you know what you're talking about and you can help them get their home sold. Now, you can even talk to them about a virtual tour. So Zillow, they have their fancy showcase feature, and you don't necessarily have to pay for that and utilize that. But if you show them, hey, if you do a virtual tour, you're going to be able to get buyers even farther away that aren't able to tour your home in person, because they'll be able to go through and check this out. And that might be something that you can sell to them additional or upcharge or something if you're going to bring in a photographer to do a Matterport, or if it's something that you can factor into your cost. If you're doing a luxury listing, then that's a really valuable feature that you can showcase to them and get them excited about. Now, another one, declutter, depersonalize, and discard, okay? The 3 Ds. So I heard a story recently about this lady. She was going to sell somebody's house. She walks into their home, and their fireplace is painted pink. And she had to tell them, listen, no one wants a pink fireplace. You need to paint it another color. And there's a lot of little tips like that. If somebody's lived in their home for a long time, they might be unaware to how much clutter and how many things are blocking the view that a buyer needs to be able to see when they walk through the home. So explain to them that decluttering their house, depersonalizing their house, if they have a lot of photos or maybe some really outrageous ones, they might want to put those away if they're really serious about getting the most money for their home. And then, of course, discard. Go through the house, clean it out, and get rid of some stuff, and just make it a little easier for your buyers to visualize living in your home. That's going to help you sell. So that's another tip you can provide to them as well. Now, also show them that the unique features are going to help them get their home sold. Okay? Agents miss this all the time. So again, if somebody is, they have a beautiful home and they have a really special view, or a really, beautiful pool, or a very, an incredibly large closet. My fiance, she loves a big closet. And if the closet is not shown, then she might not be very interested in the house. That's literally the most important thing to her. So show them, wow, if you have a really huge closet, you should highlight that unique feature, because that's going to get you more money for your home. And of course, explain to them that you are going to be available. When I was shopping for homes, I can't tell you how many homes I would call on and the listing agent wouldn't answer the phone. Honestly, I think it was 70 to 80% of the time they wouldn't answer the phone, even at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, and it blew my mind. So explain to them you're going to be available, you're going to answer the phone, and maybe you could even have an assistant, or maybe you have somebody at your office that's always available on the phone during business hours. You're going to be available to answer the phone when some interested buyer calls about their home. So once you put together all of those amazing home selling tips, then you need to send them your selling tips. And my personal favorite for this is to door knock, okay? Now, why is door knocking so effective? Well, we found that the agents that do this, they get a response about 1 in 5 door knocks, okay? And that's the highest response rate possible. And if you meet them at their door, you might be able to get an instant appointment with them and meet with them and start talking to them right away, which is really, really cool, right? Now, on the flip side, if you make a phone call, you might be able to get 1 appointment for every 100 phone calls that you do. So I think it's even more fun to door knock. You get to drive around town, you get to get coffee, blast some music while you're going house to house, knock on the door, and give them your helpful home selling tips there right on the spot. So it's definitely the most effective way to do it, but it is a little bit more work. Now, another way that you can do it is mail it to them. Mail is still a great way to reach people because most people open their mail and go through their mail. And you can send them something printed and physical, send them a printed guide, send them some information. Even if you just want to print it out on the paper at your office and mail them all of your ideas to get their home sold, that's going to get a really good response rate. And then the last way you can do it is email or even a text message if you have their phone number, okay? Now, the reason I don't personally love this way is because we're already so inundated with emails and text messages and digital things, and it's very, very easy for stuff to get lost in the mail, okay? Or lost in the digital email inbox that never seems to end. I've probably got over 100,000 emails in my inbox. So if you email me, I'm not very likely to see it. If you mail something to me, I'm very likely to see it. If you knock on my door, you're almost guaranteed to get my attention. So those are 3 different ways. It's up to you which way you want to do it. Obviously, door knocking takes a little more time, but it's going to get you a much higher response rate. And I think 1 in 5 people is absolutely fantastic and totally worth the time invested. Now, number 3, you need to get the appointment. So if you meet somebody in person and you door knock them, you might get an instant appointment, which is really cool. And you could get a listing the very same day, but not everybody's going to be available to sit down and meet with you and talk to you right in that exact moment. So for all of those people, you want to follow up. Now, of course, if you're mailing them or texting them or emailing them, you're going to need to follow up to get the appointment. So how can you do this? Well, I recommend doing a 60-day follow-up campaign. And 60 days is great because then you can meet them when they're ready. When you hit them at that right moment, maybe they have things going on in their life. They're busy, they have vacations, they have, somebody's in the hospital, somebody's getting married. There's always things going on. But if you follow up for at least 60 days, you're going to be able to reach most of those people at an opportune moment when they are available. So very simple way to do this is to do 3 touches of follow-up every week. 1 weekly email, 1 weekly text message, and 1 weekly phone call. And that's going to allow you to touch them 3 times per week to get that appointment. Now, what are you going to do on these? Well, you should be asking for the appointment, okay? Now, the best thing to do is to provide help. And again, more helpful tips include tips about great photos, how to negotiate, how to stage your home, how to renovate your home for the highest return on your investment, okay? But you should be asking for the appointment as much as possible. And one of the best ways to ask for an appointment is to give 2 times. And it's not a, hey, are you available to meet? It's a, hey, are you available to meet Monday or Tuesday? And when you give people 2 options, you're going to get more yeses because you're not giving them an option to say no. If you say, can you meet? They can say, no, I can't meet. If you say, can you meet me Monday or Tuesday? They're more likely to say, I can meet Tuesday, I can meet Wednesday, or I can meet Monday, or they'll provide you an alternate time. But it is very, very effective. It increases your likeliness to get an appointment by quite a bit. I don't know the exact percentage, but every time we've utilized this, we've gotten more appointments. Number 4, it's time to close the listing, okay? How can you close the listing? Well, go on the appointment and meet them at their house. That's the best way to do it. And when you're at their house, tour their home. Ask them to give you a tour of their home because this builds rapport and it gets them talking. It gets them talking about their home, and people love to talk about themselves, okay? Now, as you're going through the home tour, ask them lots of questions, okay? Questions like, what do you like about the home? Try to get them to tell you all about their home and why it's special. What renovations have you done on your home? What is your favorite part about your home? What is special? What is unique about your home? And as they're telling you this, write these ideas down because those are little things that you can then use later when you're trying to close them. And you can explain to them how you're going to highlight those unique unique features, okay? Now, the next thing you need to do is demonstrate your value, okay? So after you've toured the home, you've built that rapport, you've talked, you've chit-chatted, you've learned about them and their home and their situation, now it's time for you to sit down and show them how you're going to get this sold, your plan to sell it, market it, and get it sold. And there's a few things that you can talk about. So the first thing is the MLS. Why are we talking about the MLS? Well, whenever you list a property on the MLS, it goes everywhere. It's going to go on Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, international real estate websites, your brokerage website. It's going to go all over the place. And that's one of the biggest benefits about listing with an agent. If somebody lists a home FSBO, it's really only going to show up in the FSBO section, and they have to list it on each website, and they just don't get nearly as much exposure. Also, other agents are not going to be very interested in bringing a buyer to that FSBO because they might lose the deal and they're not always sure someone's going to pay on a FSBO, okay? So when you show them, hey, I'm going to list your home and it's going to go everywhere, that's a huge value. And a lot of agents forget about that because you're so used to it. You do it all the time. You already know that. But a lot of homeowners are not very aware of that, okay? Now, the next thing is professional photos. Again, like we talked about, professional photos are so important, and you're going to show them that you're going to have a professional photographer come out. They can enhance the photos. They can change the photos from night to day. They can show what the home is going to look like at sunset. That's really, really special, and that's going to go a long way. Now, we talked a little bit about the unique features. Unique features are really important. So if they have a special water feature, if they have an amazing view, if they have a pool, if they have a garage, if they have a unique upstairs loft, and that's why in the tour you want to get them talking about what is special about their home, and then bring that back in the close and say, yes, we're going to list your home, and we're going to make sure we take a photo of the pool from a few different angles and show how nice that space is, or if it's a condo, we're going to make sure we go through and we get access. We're going to take a photo of the gym, of the community space, of the rec room, of the pool, of the this, of the that, and tell them that so that they are now understanding, okay, this agent's going above and beyond what my last agent did, and that's why they're going to be a lot more comfortable to list with you. If you've ever sold an expired before, you should talk about that and tell the story. So like the story we showed you at the beginning of this, where there was another agent that made a home look like a haunted house. They had really gloomy, dreary photos. We came in, improved the photos, and sold it in 32 days. You probably have a story similar, and you should talk about it. That's going to help them understand, listen, this agent has experience selling homes that couldn't sell, and I want to work with them. And of course, don't forget your testimonials. Now, if you're a new agent and you don't really have a bunch of testimonials, then you can talk about your brokerage testimonials and utilize those, that your brokerage, that your office, they have a lot of experience getting homes sold, and that can be an important thing to talk about as well. Now, the last thing that you've got to do is close, okay? And again, the best way to close, you should practice your closes. Get a couple of scripted closes in your mind. Save them there by practicing them. And a favorite of mine is, can I go to work and help you find the perfect buyer for your home? And then shut up and wait for them to respond. And that's a very simple close, okay? And it's a very effective close, and it works. Now, another close with the two options like we talked about a moment ago. Would you like to list your home for sale at $290,000, or do you think $300,000 would help you get a better result? And that's a two-option close, okay? So they're not super special. They're not like really complicated ninja mind games, but they're very simple closes that you can use to get them to you know what? We'd like to list it at $295. Okay, great. Let's write that up in the contract, $295. I just need your signature right here. And you pass it over to them and you write it in and have them sign the agreement. But you have to ask for the listing. All too often, I talk to agents and they have this idea. They don't want to close. They want to say, well, I want to warm them up on the appointment and then I'll get them on another appointment. And I don't think it's a waste of time. And I think you should never say, I'm not here to list your home. I'm not here to sell your home. I hear that a lot of times too, because agents are so fearful of like bothering or getting people to run away from them that they start saying stupid things like, I'm not here to sell your home. Of course you're there to sell their home. And until you list their home for sale, you can't really help them. You can't really bring them value and get them a buyer and get them a contract and get the money in the bank. You can't do that until you get the home listed for sale. So you should never say, I'm not here to sell your home. You should always come with the mindset of, I am here to sell your home. And you want to close on that appointment. And if they say no, that's okay. You can move on and maybe they'll call you back another time. But my mother would always say, if you don't ask, you're definitely going to get a no. You've got to ask for what you want in order to receive it. Now, if you get objections, which are very common, then you got to handle those objections and you should be prepared to handle those objections. Now, some common objections are, I want to find a new home first. And this is a very common objection. This comes up a lot. And a very good way to address this objection is to bring them to reality by explaining to them, if you buy a home before you sell, you're going to be in a much weaker position to negotiate because now you've got 2 mortgage payments and you're under a tremendous amount of pressure. So what would actually be better would be for us to list your home and list it contingent on you finding a new house. And they might find the perfect buyer. They might find a great buyer who's not in a big hurry that says, yeah, that's okay. We just want to move in the next, 30 days or 2 months or something like that. But we can work with you. And there was somebody that I knew, they went and they put down $200,000 for a new build house. And they kind of dilly-dallied. They took their time listing their home for sale. And they didn't list their home for sale until about 90 days from the close date on their new home. Well, they listed their home for $1 million, and they thought it was going to sell for $1 million, even though they had bought it for $550,000 about 5 years before. They'd done some improvements, and they thought now it's worth $1 million. Well, the market disagreed, and 2 weeks later, they got no interested buyers, so they dropped it to $950. Another month went by, and they still didn't have any interested buyers, and now they had eaten up half of the time they had until they had to close on their new house. They went from 90 days to 45 days, and they still had no interested buyers. So they dropped it down to $850. And now they were under tremendous pressure because if they didn't close, they were going to lose a $200,000 down payment on their new construction home. So the date kept moving closer and closer, and they just kept dropping the price. And I believe they sold for about $825,000. But they put themselves under tremendous pressure because they were so committed to buying a new house before they sold theirs. So that's a story that you can use if somebody tells you, we want to buy before we sell. It's very simple. Let's make it contingent. Let's list it today. Do you really want the burden of 2 payments, or do you really want the burden of having to, drop your price so dramatically because you're not able to get what you want? That's not something that you want to deal with. Why don't we just get it listed today contingent? Okay. Now, another common objection is we want to wait to relist. Okay. So if an expired says, we're just waiting around, this and that, you could ask them something like this. Well, let me ask you, if I brought you a full price offer today, would you accept it? And they are going to think about that for a second. Well, a full price offer. Yeah, I would accept it. Okay. Well, the only way I can bring you a full price offer is if I list your home on the market, and then we go out there and we start to see if anybody's interested. Now, it's not going to cost them money to list their home. Sure, it's a little bit of a hassle and back and forth, but they're not going to get a full price offer if they're not listed. So make that clear to them. I want to bring you a full price offer. I want to get you buyers, but I can't do that if I don't put your home on the market. So why don't we put it on the market? I go do the heavy lifting, get the photos, make sure your home looks amazing, and see what kind of offers we can bring you, because that's going to get you closer to a full price offer. And if they still dig their heels in, then there's maybe something else that's slowing them down. Now, another objection might be, what's different about you from my last agent, okay? And that's where you can go back to all those different things we were talking about, demonstrating your value, okay? Professional photos, answering the phone. You're going to highlight the unique features. Talk about your previous expired success if you have any. So those are simple things. It's not like you have to build the biggest hill about why you're better than the last agent. Just a few things. Literally, if their last agent was on vacation for half of the time their home was listed, that's a big difference if you're an agent that's not going to be on vacation all the time. Answering the phone is a big deal, okay? So explain those little subtle differences, and then again, ask for the close again. After each objection that you handle, you should ask for the close again. So if you address an objection, I answer the phone all the time, okay? And when I'm not available to answer the phone, my assistant picks up the phone. Now, when you combine that with the fact that we're going to take great photos of your home, we're going to write an amazing description, we're going to put it on every website possible, you can clearly see that there's a big difference between me and the last agent you worked with. So why don't we get your home listed? Do you think $280 is going to be a good price, or do you think $300 is going to be a better price for you? And then you wait, okay? Now, another common objection is, I want to think about it. The objection of all objections, okay? And what that really means, usually it just means, I'm not convinced. I'm not sold on hiring you. I don't think that you've got the stuff, okay? So if someone says, I want to think about it, then you should respond with, I must not have answered all of your concerns. What is it that you want to think about? And try to dig in deeper to find out what it is. And they might say, well, I need to talk to my husband about this, or I need to talk to my kids to see if they're going to be in town. I just don't know. We might have the kids in the house for a little while, and we just don't want to be trying to sell it and then have to, get the kids out or something like that. They're going to be coming back from college, and then you can start to dig in. Well, why don't we, figure out how to resolve that problem? So really, as you know, your job as a realtor is to resolve problems. You're a problem fixer. So figure out what those problems are so that you can fix those problems. And if it is something, if you leave the appointment and you really just couldn't get it done, and they said, I've got to talk to this person or I've got to talk to that person, then what you need to do is schedule a follow-up time, a specific time on the calendar, and the sooner the better. If they're saying, I need to talk to my spouse about it and I'm going to talk about it tonight with them, then you could say, well, how about I call you at 9 p.m. and see what you have to say. Now, that might be a little aggressive, but you could say, well, why don't I give you a call tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and see what you had to say with your spouse. The sooner your follow-up, the better. Don't say, I'm going to call you next week just because it's convenient to say, I'm going to call you next week. Pick a time that's as early as possible, that's fair and reasonable for everybody, and then set it on the calendar and put it on your calendar in front of them. Okay, cool. Well, I've saved a note on my phone. I'm going to add you to this calendar event. We're going to talk on Wednesday at 12 p.m. I will give you a phone call, so please be available and ready to talk to me then. And if you haven't, you just send me a text. If you're not ready then, let me know and we can reschedule. But all the time, people miss out on deals because they don't set a clear follow-up date. And I found that if you set a clear follow-up, you will get a much better response when you call them because they're thinking about it. Or you'll get them to say, I'm not available, so it doesn't waste your time. But also what it does is it puts pressure on them to resolve whatever it is that they are thinking about. So if they said, I've got to talk to this person, they know I need to talk to that person before Wednesday at 12 because that's the time I told them I would talk to them. So it gets them motivated and moving. So let's recap your 4 steps to listing more expireds, okay? So number 1, you're going to find the ripe expireds. Old expireds are the best expireds to go after because there's less competition, and also expireds that had price reductions or bad photos. Those are expireds that you can help. Number 2, you're going to gain their trust by being helpful, bringing them helpful content, helpful ideas about how to get their home sold, helpful tips, helpful information, marketing guides, photo guides, all those negotiation strategies. All of those are helpful tips tips that you can provide to them that shows you're an expert, okay? Number 3, follow up until you get that appointment. A lot of people are not available to meet right away, so if you follow up with a phone call, email, and a text message every other day over the course of 60 days, you're going to get a lot of appointments and you'll be able to go meet with those people and see if they'll list with you. And then number 4 is to close the appointment. Show up, ask questions, build that rapport with the seller. Figure out what is their motivation. Why are they selling? What do they love about their house and what do they want to sell it for? And then close, close, close. Continue to ask them if they're ready to list. Do they want to list at this price or that price? Do they want to list on this date or that date? Whatever it is, give them options and then dig into their objections. If they give you an objection, figure out what is the real deal stopper. And if you need to follow up, set a clear date for that follow-up so that they answer the phone call and they're motivated to resolve their issues before they meet with you. That's how you can go out there and list a lot of expireds. I really hope that you liked that. If you did, please leave a comment below with your thoughts. We love to see them.